Hello everybody. Today we will be looking at using comparison data. The key takeaways at the end of this video for you should be that we should always be focusing on students, no matter what we do, not just with data, but with everything. And then we should always be using comparison data when we are looking at a data set. For this example, we're going to be talking about equitable discipline in a made-up district. So to start out with, let's take a look at this table, and just so that it makes sense what this is saying, Franklin Elementary School, at Franklin Elementary School, 0.9% of their discipline referrals are being written and sent to the office for American Indian students. 3.8% of their discipline referrals are being written for Asian students, 22.8% for Black students, 12.3% for Hispanic Latino students, 11.4% for multiracial students, and white students are having 48.87% of the discipline referrals are being written for white students. So if you added this entire row up, you would get 100% over here. So that's just the breakdown at Franklin Elementary School. This is the breakdown at Washington, Monroe, Kennedy, and then Hoover. And then this grand total would be district-wide, what percent of each of the discipline referrals are being written for each group of students. At this time, what I'd like for you to do is push pause on your video recording and answer the question on the screen. So looking through there, where do you see possible concerns about inequity? Go ahead and pause, take it some time, maybe 30 seconds to a minute, to look through there, and do you see any possible concerns about inequity? All right, we're back. When I looked through this, what I saw was these three cells stood out to me. So match your thinking to mine. When I'm looking at this column, it just 7.3% just seems so much larger of a number than the other American Indian students and how many referrals were being written at each of the schools as far as the percent. I also noticed that at Kennedy, Asian students with 18.5%, that seems so much higher than the others, and Black students at Kennedy, 59.3%. That one really stood out to me. Now, in order to get a full picture though, there's a little bit more to it. So let's take a look, and here's a question that you can ask yourself without pausing the video. What else would you like to see related to this data? What I personally wanted to see was the actual enrollment at each of those schools. So I wanted to see demographics at each school when it comes to race and ethnicity. So now when I look at those same concerns I had when I highlight those, I'd say that this is still a bit of a concern. Less than 10% of the referrals are being written for American Indian students, but I'd want to know why. And then when I look at Kennedy, actually this matches up really well. 18.7% of the students at the school are Asian, and 18.5% of the referrals are being written for Asian students. That actually matches up pretty well. And this number that I was really concerned about is not as much of a concern. It's something I would want to monitor, but I am not as concerned about it now that I know that over half of the students at Kennedy are Black. However, when I go up here and look at Washington Elementary School, again, like I said, this is a concern, but this one now really jumps out at me. Only 6.4% of the students at Washington are Black. However, 35.6% of the referrals being written at that school are for Black students. So that, to me now, that makes it a concern now that I've actually looked at some comparison data so that I know what the actual enrollment is. Another really good comparison data to look at is trend data. In other words, how are things going from one year to the next? So I'm going to stay focused in on Black students at Washington, and now I'm seeing an even more complete picture because I'm seeing 12.1% of the referrals in 16-17 were written for Black students, 26.3% in 17-18, 35.6% in 18-19, and now that I know that less than 7% of the students at Washington are Black, and I know that this trend seems to really be ramping up, this is something that I would be concerned about, and I would want to make sure that going forward we are addressing that and seeing if there are some things that we could be doing at that school to help with that, what seems to be a situation that is getting increasingly more concerning. So at the end, whenever you look at data and you look at the comparison data and you find what you are looking for, the next thing to do is to ask yourself, and again, at the beginning we talked about focusing on students, how can you use this data set to have a positive impact on students? And what will be the next steps if you are an administrator at Washington? Thank you for watching this video. There is another video that follows up with this and takes things a little bit further.